False awakening, the different REM. So through sleep, when someone's asleep, mirrored REM corridors, catalyzed dreams that can access multidimensional points of view. So waking up from dreams, waking up from a dream from a dream from a dream type of deal. Now, what gets interesting with this is with these types of corridors, one falls asleep. Not everyone can get this, but when one falls asleep, they end up experiencing like they've woken up from it, but they can't. They're waking up from another dream, and then they start false realizing like they're in their house or they're somewhere else that they realize that they're usually at normal life, or maybe a time jump. They can't get out of it. What's really going on is you're going through time loop streams and corridors in the dimensions of your dreams itself.
Everybody, welcome to episode 55. Blue, how are you doing?
I'm good today, Mike.
Hey, what are we going to talk about today in episode 55?
Shadow self and define motions of shadow work. What equilibrium stands between a negative and positive outlets of your actual shadow itself. How one can acknowledge their own setbacks and actually acquire that better equilibrium.
Wow, I never think of my shadow. Wow, I can't wait to make sure that I'm not making a fool of myself here, and those are one and the same here in a few minutes. Hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hey, if we're not on a platform where you like to get your stuff, go ahead and reach out to us on the socials. We're responsive, and we'll do our best to get on that platform. And while you're here, before we get going, please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, click on notifications, follow, all those fancy keywords. Go ahead and do that so you're notified when we post new material. And of course, speaking of material, you can have a piece of the material that I'm wearing or that Blue's wearing. Go ahead and check out our link for our merch. We'd love to have you aboard for the cause. Blue, let's get going in 55.
Absolutely, Mike. And just like a Swiss psychologist, Carl Jung, had mentioned that there is a personality that has two components. The personal, which meaning is the mask, the conscious self, our conscious personality, which determines how we deal with the world, how we can maintain it and ourselves. And then we have the shadow. We have the divine motion of the negative part of the person. We'd rather not be the opposite effect of who we are in our conscious personality. And what does this mean? And what does the shadow self mean spiritually? And what an understanding that many people are looking more towards defining of their negative motions and their negative being than their positive outlets. And it's gotten worse nowadays. But what we need to do is create an equilibrium, because when we're within this 3D shell, we have the shadow. We're not in an actual vortical strand, moving from one place to another. We're unlocked when we're that way, but we're locked in to a graphical effect this way. And with humans, just like they had talked about in the Divine Bible, how they have known between the positive and the negative, how they were given that. But then there's an equilibrium with that stance, and we need to represent ourselves better. And this comes into the motions of knowing your darker side and acknowledging what you can do to get rid of a lot of that negativity.
Wow, it's crazy because, you're growing up and you're a little kid and one day you notice that you have this shadow and you point and you ask, and sometimes you'll play around with it to make sure it is what you're being told it is. And you know, and then as you progress, you can think back to movies maybe that you've seen where the evil spirit or the evil person or thing or entity in the movie is represented by a mystical dark presence. So if I understand you correctly, this is actually a part of us. Our shadow is actually a part of us, but it's not necessarily the good part of us.
Well, the shadow self, the authorical strand of your part. And, in every 3D or every holographic self projection screen that is of a known authorical strand and known neural device maintains an actual shadow self, an equilibrium between one setback or something that could go forward for them. But when they become too perverse and they're still in their own shells, they learn to utilize things more negatively. And by knowing to utilize shadow work in the right stance, because witchcraft, they sometimes they don't utilize it proper and they may manufacture it wrong. But when you start learning the definitions of the negative parts of you and seeing what you can do to program it right, maybe, just maybe, you can see it coordinates just the rejections, the repressed modes of effect, the moods, the setbacks, all the things that have pushed one down. So they bottle it up, they put it in a wall, or they put it in a box. They set that box on another part of their mind. And it kind of goes to a darker part of their mind. It's two motions of this. Maybe letting go and finding way to enlightenment and programming your mind and getting rid of that negativity that has pushed you down, even if it's something you made a mistake about. Find a wavelength to enlighten your soul. That way, it creates a strand of hyphenated particles within the mind, light particles, that can actually program the person better, and it can get them out of that box that they are set in.
So, if I understand correctly, we all have a shadow. If I have a soul, I have a shadow. So,
Yeah.
if I take that into consideration, are there beings or entities or travelers or people from other places, people from other times, people from other dimensions? If they're standing next to me, they may not have a shadow, a la when you see in the movies, they show a vampire may not have a reflection in the mirror. Is it like that? Do you have to have a soul? And if you're not of this earth, are there beings without shadows?
Well, to dumb it down to understanding level, 3D graphical imagery, when a person's in their 3D form, they have a shadow self, especially humans. There are other terrestrials, they may prove a shadow physically, but they might not have a negative part. They may have a better neural understanding of things, more proper. But for humans and other subspecies, because they know the difference between good and bad, and depending on the conjuncture and how they've been activated, will depend on how their shadow self is, or how their negative part of their soul is. If humans can self-program and remove a lot of that negative part, or find a way to stabilize it, then they could maintain their motions better. There are a lot of things that create shadows, but when we're talking about the shadow self, we're talking about the negative part of a programmer speed, the negative part of the being itself. And creating shadows, once you're in this 3D graphical image, you still maintain, you have a shadow, you have a good and a negative particleized zone, because you're maintaining on a graphical imagery state. If you're as an authorical being and you have passed and you're not into another 3D graphical image, like let's say a human passed away and it's a spirit, it does not impose a outlet like regular humans do when they're graphical, because it creates more of a hyper standard wave between electromagnetic field impulses around it and the way it's authorically stranded into the cosmos. It's an in-between layer. But humans, because they're able to manually set things into motion physically, because they're in the shells they have a darker self. But they have to learn to substantially equalize both sides of them in order for them to be a better species. They have to learn between their positive and negative emotions of effect.
Okay, so before I brought up that maybe you're a toddler or maybe you're a child when you recognize a shadow, when you begin to develop an understanding, your mind is aware now that there's this shadow. Does the same thing happen to us as human beings? Do we come to a point of awakening where we're able to visibly understand, kind of like they say people can see people's auras or people's color? Is it the same speed as that? Are there people that can really read these shadows and some of us who our minds aren't open enough yet can't understand this yet?
Well, those who are more negative, they do create some type of or more negative type of aura. And those that have a hyphenated level of feeling it, especially empaths and other types of people who have a type of psychic awareness stream, it can be similar to it because of the negativity. They're pretty much polarizing outwards. It creates some type of a darker material around them, darker type of aura. And yes, it's proving their shadow being it's overtaking them more than they should be. They're letting their negative part overtake more than their positive inlet. So yes, they're able to tell the difference.
So what I was referring to before was more of an awakening type thing. I see here we're going to talk about a false awakening.
False awakening, the different REM. So through sleep, when someone's asleep, mirrored REM corridors, catalyzed dreams that can access multidimensional points of view. So waking up from dreams, waking up from a dream from a dream from a dream type of deal. Now, what gets interesting with this is with these types of corridors, one falls asleep. Not everyone can get this, but when one falls asleep, they end up experiencing like they've woken up from it, but they can't. They're waking up from another dream, and then they start false realizing like they're in their house or they're somewhere else that they realize that they're usually at normal life. Or maybe a time jumped. They can't get out of it. What's really going on is you're going through time loop streams and corridors in the dimensions of your dreams itself. And that could be posed as a good thing if the manufacturer, the one that controls the REM, is able to progress these dreams proper and remember through the corridors that they access through.
What is this the same thing? Like, let's say I'm dreaming or I'm asleep and I may or may not know or be aware that I'm dreaming or not. It's very vivid. A lot of people's dreams are vivid. Some aren't, I guess, but mine are very vivid. If I feel like I've heard this myth and it's happened to me where I felt like I was falling. And when I was about to hit, just before I hit, I woke up. And they say, or at least I've been led to understand from documentaries or books in the past, that if you actually physically hit bottom and let's say you're falling and you hit and you don't physically wake up, you're dead now. I mean, that's what it is. Is this any way related to that? Could I have a false awakening and think that I'm alive, but I'm really dead?
Well, that would only be through one dream corridor. And then you're realizing that it didn't actually happen. Some people could get heart attacks from it. This concept is different because you're having mirrored dreams. You're having multiple dreams in one, and you can't wake up from them. You act like you're sleeping in the bed. You wake up. Are you awake? No, you're in the dream. Bam, you wake up again. Something happens. You're still in the dream. These are nested dreams that can offer a variety of outlets for the human subconscious. Manifestation of hidden desires and fears as well. And it can create an imposition upon humankind depending on how exhilarated their fears or desires right before they actually hit that REM sleep. And if those progress it properly, they can create a safe exploration during sleep itself through these corridors, have wider access to the inner dimensions that they have for.
So you've mentioned corridors quite a bit here. Is this why I'm able to have recurring dreams? Because it's like this one's tucked away down this way and this one's over here, and at any time I can go revisit those. Is that whether I intend to or not? Is that what you mean? Like those are somehow part of me and it makes it easy to connect?
It's corridors in the same night through the same dream. Corridors meaning that you're dreaming, and it's one dream, you're waking up from that dream, but you're still in the dream. Now you're in another dream. You're waking up from that dream. You're corridoring into another one. You could end up with multiple dreams or multiple corridors, but they're not the same. Each one can access different dimensions, different perceptions of the mind, different accesses of the mind, ways to dissolve one's being, dissolve certain things that don't need to be replicated of one's being, and resolve certain other activated speeds.
You know, this brings me, and I'm going to take a step way out there, and I don't know if there'll be connectivity here or not, but, you know, we talk a lot about Musk and we talk about Neuralink, and I'm wondering if there's any way that Neuralink or something like it can ever be used to tap into those dreams or maybe induce some of those dreams. What do you think?
Well, that's possible with neurotech standard if it goes in a right outlet itself for mankind. It could substantially make REM a bit more easier for one to control while they're asleep. And simplicity could pose as a possible implement towards mankind so they're more at peace while they're asleep. Because we're dealing with a lot of nightmares, dealing with a lot of negative neural stances. A lot of people get it. They don't know how to have a peaceful type of sleep. You cannot have and access your mind core proper when you're running through nightmares or you're running through something right before you go to bed that has just pushed you downwards and spiraled you downwards. So yes, there are technologies through it, through Neuralink itself, that could help.
You know, I feel like I'm in this situation now. Like, I feel like I've had a false awakening. Like, I'll give you an example here. I have dreamt for the past 4 years we've had this idiot in the White House. And I woke up this morning and I'm still in that dream. Is that sorry to go there, folks. I had to get my shot in. What are we going to talk about next, Blue?
Nuclear elements. We're going to talk about 3 different types, their benefits and their disadvantages for the realm. Formulations that encode 3 types of sciences. One we're dealing with is, in itself, plutonium, primarily used as a fuel to power nuclear reactors. They also use it, I believe, as well to maintain through military and radioactive scenarios, bombs, which doesn't pose as a good thing. But this type of mix itself, if improvised right, can be an asset to mankind. And that type of asset could be used as a nuclear sciences for energy, sciences for equipment, something that will create a health benefit for mankind. Now, if we can maintain and manage that these scientists can go into motion, this element will create a good standard. Then we have iridium, which is a precious silver white metal. It's hard and brittle. It can be used in substances, I believe, for vehicles and other things itself. And it has a low reactivity to nuclear. perfect for electrical contacts in extreme environments, and is commonly used by NASA as well, to what they use through their equipment. An alloy metal. Disadvantages, obviously, can cause burns, acute radiation, sicknesses, and even death. Now, internal exposure could occur if a person were to swallow it, like one of the seeds or pellets. Probably used as a hardening agent for platinum. See, when we talked about the disadvantages and advantages of radioactive materials, humans have got to learn to get more prone to the advantages of it. These two alone have both a symbiote meaning of a disadvantage and advantage. Nuclear science can go a long way for mankind if they utilize it the proper way. It's a major concern when they want to use this radioactive material as a weaponized system.
Yeah, you know,
and radium, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting to me because, you know, not too far before our lifetimes, you know, we were able to use radioactive materials, X-rays. That's where X-ray comes from. And now there's nuclear medicine and so forth. So I totally get what you're saying here. I mean, if we use these things for good, you know, you flash back to maybe when man first discovered fire or the ability to create fire. Well, the guy next to him never saw that before, so he reaches out and touches it. Ow, that burns. What's his immediate reaction? Fire bad. So now he hates fire. He doesn't want it. Well, the guy that is still holding the fire there is smart enough to know that he is in control of the fire. It's how he uses the fire. And I use the same analogy here. It's how you use these things that we've discovered. These things aren't here just because they happen to be here. I'm in no way do I find that we discover things by accident. I think they're on purpose. I think they're on a timeline. And I think this is another example. We need to learn how to use these materials right. Yes, they're highly dangerous. And there's people in the world that want to do danger with them. Unfortunately, to keep abreast on the world stage, we need to show that same threat while we continue to use these technologies for mankind's benefit. Is that about what you're saying here?
Yes, I mean, it's just like radium, raw. Kind of think about Egypt and the things that go with that. They have similar objects of metallic alloy structure that have a type of radioactive material in it. You know, radioactive materials were actually introduced to mankind from higher terrestrials. And yes, it was manufactured, many of it, but there are also ones that have come from underground and brought here. Radium used as sources for cancer therapy. It helps, you know, for health reasons for certain things. These types of agents can be maintained proper, but humans have to have the knowledge for it. For it was given to them for a benefit as an asset, not to deconstruct each other.
You know, it's amazing to me because back in the 70s, 80s, there was this drive toward nuclear power. And now it seems we're trying to get away from that as well, but we want more electricity use. I don't understand a lot of things that are happening in the world today, but that's another show here. Are there any warnings that are immediate out there involving, you know, nuclear elements and so forth? Is there anything I need to be immediately not fearful of, but really concerned with?
Well, like microwaves and certain technologies they implement towards mankind, manufacturers do, that even that small amount of radioactive waste is not good for mankind. You know, they need to use the agents proper. And just like it goes with military-wise, bombs, you know, nuclear agents for that. We need to stop that. We need to decommission that and start utilizing proper for it. Nuclear waste. There are nuclear plants out there. Don't throw the waste away in the barrels away in the water. There's a way to actually get rid of that waste proper with more hyper-advanced technologies instead of manufacturing it into the ozone layer or in the water itself on a bad stance. Power plants have gone down before because they did not know what to do. Shit went down, something went wrong, that's it. Chernobyl, we talked about Chernobyl before. Chernobyl went down the wrong way. And we talked about extraterrestrial activity, kind of simulated with that and others as well. But it goes so deep. But humans had to be very careful with this element.
It's crazy.
Because it could be a very high threat towards them if they don't use it right.
All right, I'm going to give Elon Musk $1 billion idea here. You know, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but in the oil industry, there's tremendous amount of waste oil. And you could take it a step further, even in kitchens and restaurants and so forth, whether, regardless of the type of oil they use, or if they're using straight lard or if they're whatever, there's a tremendous amount of waste product. In the oil industry, there's actually a sub-industry called the waste oil industry. People have figured out how to convert this waste product into fuel, into energy. Elon Musk, I challenge you right now. Take that nuclear waste, take these elements that we're talking about, convert them into something usable. Hey, you're shooting rockets up into space figure out how to take that stuff and make it fuel for those rockets. How about that? That'll save you a ton of money and make you a ton of money at the same time. Elon, you can call me. You got my number. Are we ready to talk about the SCP Foundation?
Yes, SCP-251, the Deceptive Snow Globe. Origin is unknown. It consistently appears to be a small snow globe attached to a series of photographs taken of the same artifacts over time. This indicates that the snow globe is at least partially animate. However, when viewed directly by multiple people, there is no apparent movement except by a perpetual blizzard. It has not been moved since its arrival at Site 19, but the snowflakes have never ceased falling. Now, the scenes depicted are all extremely violent or morbid of the pictures that they take, occasionally depicting something fantastical while mostly depicting more realistic brutality. Now, all those who have been alone with it for any amount of time have later displayed extreme violence, xenophobia, and emotional distress. So it's got 2 leeway points. You take a picture of this thing, you're going to be able to see the animated objects. Kind of brutal scenes. You're alone physically in front of it. You're going to experience things you're not going to want to experience in your mind over time, depending on how long you're there. And it can screw up the mind as well.
So to be clear, it's one snow globe, but the image that you see inside this snow globe changes over time.
Yes, it's usually depicting humans doing something in a brutal sort, handing another person, chopping a head off. Sorry to be kind of icky about it.
Do you think that
when I'm done well?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these here, and I'm fascinated as to it is kind of gruesome. It's almost like they're showing you a murder scene on the Saturday Evening Post cover. Like it's all, has a certain look or a certain feel to it. At the same time, it's not a joyous picture. Could it be possible that this is a portrayal of an event that happened in the past? Or is it possibly a portrayal of something that's yet to happen in the future?
An animated object, because of its unknown origin, on a progressive scene that may have happened at a time, or something that is affiliated to mind control the masses or the people just watching between the picture or just standing in front of the globe itself. Because obviously it creates something distressful for the person who's there in front of it.
So it's more of a personal thing with the person that's looking at it. Like you may look at it and see one thing, and I may look at it a different time and see something else.
Only the imagery can be seen through photographs, and they had photographs that were already been taken through that imagery that they had already claimed. And I'm sure that they had taken more photographs too. But for a person from their peripheral view of mode, when they're in front of it, all they see is snow falling in the globe, just a big blizzard. Nothing else surrounding it. And then after a period of time, they start experiencing anxiety, negative effects through their mind, xenophobia.
Wow, that's crazy. What's the next SCP we're going to talk about?
553, the Crystalline Butterflies. It is a colony of approximately 140,000 winged organisms, superficially resembling butterflies. They possess a silicon-based biochemistry and are composed primarily of calcium and silicate compounds. So they're more crystalline in structure, but they're organic as well. The body of a member of the species is most likely calcite, with some of the internal organs composed of a material similar to quartz. Now, what gets interesting with these species, they rely on a form of echolocation to sense their surroundings. And they do this by creating a variety of high-pitched tones by scraping and striking their legs together and appearing to use their wings as a mobile array to detect reflected sound. And if one feels threatened, they create that sonar to the others and they start attacking that organism and slicing it until it's pretty much decapitated. Now, they won't go automatically towards anyone or any entity like that unless they feel it's a threat. They feed on lichen and they feed on stalactites or certain particles in certain caves itself. And they were found in a cave system somewhere in China. And so it does go into some type of folklore too that indicates the cave system is inhabited by demons. So the site's monitored, and they have 125 instances have been transported to another site for observation and experimentation. I would not be surprised if these entities that come from the actual inner worlds themselves, from the inside out into these cave systems.
Wow.
They have so many creatures out there humans are no idea about. This is just an opener for one of them.
Wow. It doesn't sound like it's a very friendly thing to me. If I was to run into this and see this, I would be in shock, first of all. But do I need to worry? Do I need to be fearful?
Well, only if you come across them and hurt them. If you hurt one of their species, because they're in a flock together, they create electrosonar to another, and they'll go against that person or bee. I mean, think about bees. You hurt a bee, and it's with this whole sect. They're all going to go after you. They're all going to sting you. They kill a lot of themselves because once the stinger ends, once the stinger's gone, they go. Certain species, they'll just keep attacking. These entities, as long as you don't hurt them, they wouldn't harm you.
All right.
They're not actively going to try to seek out somebody.
All right. Hey, what do we need to report from your positions with the Space Force and the Federation?
Yes, Joe Biden, dipshit Biden, on Tuesday announced on tariffs on Chinese goods, including electric vehicles and solar cells, accusing the country of cheating by engaging in unfair trade practices. As if he ain't already got a lot on his plate, he's going to sit there and pick and point fingers at others about things. I mean, to be honest, between electric fuels and between gasoline fuels, humans may want to impose a better fuel standard over both of them and stop their stupidity amongst each other on things. China's leader hold moral ground. They hold higher moral grounds on things. And Mr. Biden's just got to poke the bear. He's got to start poking bears everywhere he goes, instead of trying to utilize working for every country on this planet. He wants to go against certain ones and does what he wants. This doesn't work for a leader that represents a country itself, especially the United States of America.
Well, you know, for what it's worth, I don't think the tariff means anything. I think Biden's in China's pocket. What I mean by that is it's a red herring. Okay. What he's not telling you, what a lot of people don't realize is
Hmm.
China has built factories right across the Mexico border. So this tariff isn't going to hurt them at all anyway. They're just going to produce those same cars in Mexico. Oh, by the way, with the lithium, uranium, and they're the world's largest holder of minerals, thanks to us pulling out of Afghanistan like we did and giving them a great world-class airport there as well, 1 mile from the China border. And they hold all the materials. So they hold all the cards anyway. So they're just going to make the cars in Mexico and send them over across the border. Wow, Blue, you know, we're almost out of time here. I apologize for jumping in there.
Well, one more thing is
Yes.
just the House voted to pass a GOP-led bill to compel the delivery of defensive weapons to Israel. Yeah, I mean, come on, the weapons, and everything else. It's just got to stop. You know, China can be a good country as well as all the countries on this planet to work together. This is this nonsense between trying to just pick between who and what has what, and then blow away everything else. Does not work on a planet. It does not create equal terms. This is what I'm stating. Where's that equal term? Put proper leaders back into the House, please. The thing discussing about is recall. Like Elon Musk had recently talked about recalling Tyson foods. You know, we're concerned about what we're putting in our mouth. You have to be concerned about it. Because then they have these recently too with the Amy's products and their recall. The agents, the cancers, they're inducing chemicals worse, the products. If humans can't get this right, this is what's going to cause them to get more sick. All this modified products being stored into them. It's sickening. We need to go back to the more natural way, and maybe you introduce things a bit more easier for mankind. Manipulation, unfortunately.
I'm convinced it's the evil forces on our planet, you know, and if you take a look in the recent past here, a certain guy who was in charge of Microsoft Gates has bought a lot of our farmland in this country. China has bought a lot of farmland. They do that for control. The next step is, and Blue, I know you're vegan and you don't necessarily agree with this, but they're going to try to decimate the meat supply. They're going to try to just totally do without it. And I get that you don't eat meat, but there are people that do, and they want us to eat bugs and so forth. They want to control everything. Well, what we're failing to see is in that control, they're going to over process the foods. We have too much processed foods today. They're going to over process these things, introducing chemical agents, introducing things that can harm us, things that can dissolve us, things that can eliminate us, because there's too many of us on the planet using up the elite's precious resources. Sorry to get off in a rant there, but I trust something like that is what you're saying.
Yes, I mean, it's got to be an equality for everybody, not just create the terms that what they hold underneath in their underground bunkers for them and put all the nasty shit up on top for everyone else. Humans deserve better. They were transacted that way and deserve to be able to be better citizens of the cosmos. They have been withheld from that because of complete control over time. There have been several times over where human species have been reintroduced to the Earthen realms. They have been reintroduced to advanced societies and maintained. But now this is the point of a knockoff perimeter. If humans want to be introduced properly, then they got to get rid of these main organizations that are causing so much on mass control.
Yeah. You know, it seems every week it's a common theme, man. You know, these 3-letter, 4-letter, multi-letter organizations trying to control us. It's crazy. So let's get into
All
ET
right.
of the week.
The Mythi from the Andromeda Galaxies. The Mythi exist amongst other types of humanoids amongst the Andromeda Star Cluster Galaxies. Pinkish skin with bald heads and wide eyes are one of the other monitors that travel between Earth and other Tera Realms. Short with tight black clothes and high intelligence, possess qualities of the knowledge and incorporated technologies for more advanced than current human races. Justified actions limit species to bi-equal standards. And what gets interesting with this type of entity is that they had recent deaths of 3 Keralites in Arachnia Pradesh. And they have left the police perplexed about what had happened. There were numerous marks on them, as well as what they had found on the laptop about this type of species. And how they, on Aria's laptop, it talks about they had a talk between them, and the species had given them all this information and explained about things. In Mythi itself, I said, I doubt that the people you mentioned be working with radio frequencies or familiar with nanotechnology and their nuances. I presume it does not work on the basis of the size of the transmitter, but the receiver itself. Listen closely. Probably also not aware what the elites have acquired from their reptilian friends, which are way too advanced for any nanotech. Meaning they don't have the interology effect to present themselves proper. What comes to my mind, in his mind, is a small molecule programming box, capable of connecting with Mythi almost anywhere. There's a small programming molecular size inlet sphere that could represent better frequencies and nanotechnologies to the programmer itself. This species is talking about the implementation of the DNA faction codes of humans being brought here. That the races before them were mammals. It talks about this in the Bible too. And they were brought here. And how their encodings were manually set from other terrestrials, other starseeds, other generators. Like myself as a generator, a starseed, there are numerous others.
So, Blue, are you telling me because these creatures look kind of human-like, maybe they're closer to us than we understand?
They're a hyper-advanced society of humanoids, just like the Anunnaki and certain other types of beings, the Palladians, the Nordics, the short people, and certain types of moon people. You know, it goes to so many wavelengths. And coordinated in terms of their humanoid structures, they're just an engram of the human species, but from another realm itself, another subsystem, more advanced. For programmers to set an affiliation, as well as many others, upon the human being able to monitor and designate codes of effect for sapience or lower sapience.
You know, it's amazing to me because you had mentioned the Bible in there before, and if you read the Bible, it says in the Bible we're made in God's image. Makes you wonder if God and maybe some of these interdimensional or alien beings aren't one in the same. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes, and then we got the deities, the demigods, like Zeus, Poseidon, Hathor, Ra, all these different types of gods and goddesses they talk about. Maybe in coordinated stance that they were affiliated, including Christ himself, for hypergenetic stance, from an equalization point from other beings, other subspecies, and co-created that terminology effect. And then many humanoids were progressed from even deeper down, from entities like this, which are considered the star representers, much higher up than humans are, and affiliated tone to the infinitum, the central core itself, or the central mainframe itself, that exists between to control the forces of life and death.
Wow, that's a lot of information. And just like that, we are out of time. Hey, everybody, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And kind of like I always think on this show, I try to keep looking up. I want you to keep looking up as well. Thanks a lot, Blue. We'll see you in 56.
Yep. Thank you, Mike.